Hello and welcome to the first episode of our brand new MMG series, Under the Spotlight, where we take major figures from in and around Greater Manchester, putting them under the spotlight and asking the questions you want answered. In today's episode, we are joined by Greater Manchester's Mayor, Andy Burnham. We spoke to Mr Burnham before last night's Mayor's Question Time at the Students' Union. Here's what he had to say about everything ranging from transport and spiking to his plans for the future. Welcome Andy Burnham, so we're going to get started straight away. The Greater Manchester Student Assembly recently sent you a letter petitioning for a £1.50 student bus fare across all of Manchester, following the TfL model. What is your response to this campaign?
Well, thanks for the letter, and I absolutely understand why you're sending it. I will look at it, and I can't commit to doing it straight away because we've just introduced a fare cap only at the start of September. That's for adults, £2 fare cap and a £1 fare cap for under 16s. We've got to get the data back from that first and just see how that lands before we can go any further at this stage. So if I could do it tomorrow, I would do it, but I've obviously got to make it all add up, and I just need to kind of take time to look at it.
So you're open to the idea?
Oh, definitely. I'm very much interested in seeing if we could do it. I am looking at the hire bikes at the moment to see whether there's some student offer we could do there as well. So I am looking at all of those things. I just obviously in the current financial climate, it's hard to make a commitment and then be sure you can pay for it.
Well, that leads me to my next question. So the B network currently offers very little for students. There are no barrel bikes in Withington, a popular student area, and the closest tram stop to the university is in St Peter's Square. Do GMCA plan to rectify this?
Well, we did prioritise the university for the rollout of the B-bikes. So, there are lots of stands down Oxford Road, and because we wanted to prioritise the student population, there are plans to expand the scheme around the city. So Withington will get them at some point. But it's still in that sort of rollout phase at the moment. But we recognise, as I said before, the need to improve transport in this area around the university, but also in the areas where students mainly live. So we're on with it, and I'll hopefully be able to say more soon.
Last year we spoke to a popular student bar in 256 about the spiking epidemic.
Yes.
And we were told by the owner of the bar that they had talked to GMP multiple times about trying to improve security in the area, but the GMP never got back to them. Why aren't GMP listening to nightlife industry and trying to make a positive change?
Myself and Sasha Lord came here to the university actually to talk to students who'd organised a big protest in the city centre, and we set up an anti-spiking partnership working with a number of bars and with GMP, where we were looking at getting testing kits available on the spot, so that if somebody felt they'd been spiked, they could immediately get access to that. And we were asking the clubs and the bars to do more to help people who may feel they needed time out, if they felt unwell, if they were worried they'd been spiked. So we listened to a call from the students here. We did do something. Now, I can't vouch for every bar in the city, but many want to work with us on this, and I know GMP want to work on this with us. But obviously, if something went wrong there, then that's something I would apologise for.
The same owner also told us that they were trying to contact the council to increase night transport around Fallowfield because they were getting infrequent buses and students couldn't get back home in time if there was any sort of danger. How are you working to make sure that student areas are safer in this way? Yeah,
so the problem with the buses at the moment is that we don't control the buses, so they can decide what services they run, and that's the big reason why buses here need to change. So I have taken the decision to put buses under public control, and so for anyone who arrives at the university now in their first year, they will basically be here while the whole of our city becomes regulated. So the buses will slowly change to the yellow and black B network buses, and they will then integrate with the trams, and the system will dramatically change over the next 3 years. And then we will be able to mandate when the buses run, and we can't do that at the moment. So I know if, say, somebody's coming here from London who's used to a very different transport system, it might be a bit of a shock, and I accept that, but that's why we're changing it. So we're building a London-style public transport system. And Greater Manchester Police, to answer your question about the safety, have just committed to making the transport system in effect the 11th district of Greater Manchester. So we have 10 boroughs that are districts that are policed, but they're now saying that they will consider the transport system the 11th district, and we're going to have much more proactive policing of the transport system at all hours of the day.
So now on to everyone's favourite current subject, the cost of living crisis. So for the first time ever, students are actually set to lose money on their maintenance loan. With inflation and energy bills soaring, how are you supporting students amidst the cost of living crisis?
Well, I know it doesn't go as far as you like, but the bus cap does help people. A £2 cap or a £5 multi-operator ticket will save money for people because it was higher before we introduced that. We have also frozen the fares on the trams for 3 years, which is obviously intended to help people. Other things that we're doing, we've set up a website on a service on the GMCA website called Helping Hand, and the idea of that is to signpost people to all of the support that's available through local organisations, through my own organisation, to help people. So there's a range of things that we're trying to do to help people, but there's obviously a limit to what we can do at this level.
The housing crisis is particularly acute amongst student communities. Last year, all the private rental properties on Manchester student homes had gone by November. Will GMCA work with students and the university to ensure no student goes without an affordable home?
Definitely, I think there's a real issue here, isn't there? And I think some of it is structural and permanent, but some of it is pandemic related. So I think you have a situation where student numbers increased in the years after the pandemic because of the way exam results were being done. And also, I think some of the new accommodation that was meant to come on stream has been delayed. So I do think we've had a bit of a perfect storm really in the last couple of years, and this year's been particularly bad. And what it says to me is, to answer your question, I absolutely will sit down with the Vice-Chancellors and see if we can work out a more structured plan to make sure that we've got that accommodation coming through. I think there's also an issue around people withdrawing private rented properties from the student market, because there's changes coming with national legislation around the renting of private rented properties. So I think there's a bit of a sort of range of issues here that are combining to create real pressure on housing. I understand it's caused stress and anxiety for people, but let's learn from this summer and see how we can improve things going forward.
And is there anything specifically GMCA can do now to help the renting and housing crisis in Fallowfield?
Well, we do have a good landlord charter that we're developing, and I've always said to students here when I've been to discuss these issues that we should prioritise the Fallowfield area, Rusholme, Withington, the areas where students live, because I recognise some of the accommodation is not good enough. I say that because my own brother studied here and lived in Fallowfield, and it's probably a little better than it was in those days, but maybe sometimes not much. So I do think there's an issue about how, access to homes, but also how landlords treat students. So we're looking at our good landlord charter being introduced, and I would be really keen to kind of prioritise this area to see if we can improve housing standards.
As the last question, your second mayoral term is ending in 2024. After being in this role since what's now 5 years, since 2017, what's next for Andy Burnham?
Well, a third term is what I'm getting ready for. The first term I was really focused on homelessness, and we made a big change there. We set up a scheme called A Bed Every Night, and that's running now, and it's really made a difference. This term is very much about buses and integrating buses with the trams. The third term would be to bring trains into the B network, and then to really build out the London transport system, London-style transport system. So I'm really excited the way the city's developing, to be honest. We're not, for anyone who's come here new, I'm not going to claim that it's all perfect, we're the finished article. We're not, we're not London, but what we are doing here is steadily improving all of the time. And I think, for me anyway, I feel it's like unfinished business. We have a goal of a net zero city region by 2038. And alongside improving transport, we do want to build more homes, zero carbon homes for social rent that would be very much prioritised for young people. We are decarbonising our energy system. So it's a moment of real change and real opportunity. And yeah, I'm kind of I kind of enjoy this job much more than I ever enjoyed Westminster. So as I keep saying, no one believes me in the media, but I'm kind of I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
That's all we have time for today. Andy Burnham, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Under the Spotlight. We'd like to thank everyone who's watched all the way through, as well as Andy Burnham. Please ensure to look at this week's Mancunian newspaper to find out more on Mia's question time and more about the interview.